Can hear the sound of a heartbeat before it goes down. Will never leave my memory, bloodshed all around. I can see a tear on my father's face before it falls down. My enemy, how could I ever let you down? I actually need to check this out. I want to check this out because I have never like really put my brain on the song itself. I might be reacting to that at some point in time. None of you are gonna see this, not even the patrons probably, because this is gonna all be cut out. Maybe it's not. But you know, I actually want to see if I can do that. I haven't sung in like forever. I can hear the sound of a heartbeat before it goes out. Won't ever leave my memory, bloodshed all around. And I can see a tear on my foot. Alright, then I can't do that. I can't do that because I like I have it in my mind, but not directly, right? Like, so what I would have to do is like put it on in the back, right? Maybe even like at the same time, so you'd have to kind of just maybe not. Maybe like just do the normal version. I can hear sound of a heartbeat before it goes out. Won't ever leave my memory, bloodshed all around. And I can see a tear on my father's face before it falls out. Oh, my enemy, how could I have ever let you down? When all these trees saw us grow, cut our teeth, make our bones right here. Play with shields made of stone, share our dreams and sit our thrones, be still. Just when I can't. We will. Glorious, I swear, glory up ahead. Tell me, where is my home? I don't recognize the faces anymore. Whoa, where is my friend? The one I've known since I was only just a kid. I think it's time to say goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye. Whoa, it's time to say goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye. Whoa, it's time to say goodbye. I literally need to practice that. Maybe I'll just cut in the least embarrassing parts of that, because it's very hard. And this is why I can like acknowledge people who are starting to sing and who are like getting into singing in general, being like, holy fucking shit, what like the amount of resolve you need, the amount of like self-confidence you need to actually put yourself in front of people and be like, oh, like this is my voice and this is how I sing. And especially if you like listen back to it and if you know your voice, if you like see yourself on a recording and you notice every tiny little detail, every repeated or stuttered little letter, every little nook and cranny that's happening there. And then you're putting yourself out and you're actually singing a song and you're like going into it. And it's a very, very embarrassing experience in the beginning, which like one of the reasons why I relate so much to like the Bocce series and why I can like, because when I was a teenager, or kid/teenager, I was actually for a little while, I was in a choir, which I sang soprano, because I like my voice didn't change at that point in time. And after like my voice changed, I never really picked it up again, right? Like I sung to myself or in the shower or whatever, and you like singing stuff and whatnot. But at some point in time, I don't know when it happened, I started to feel embarrassed about my voice. And that, I guess, it came in the sense of like, people have always told me that actually I have a really good voice and I could sing very well. But after my voice changed, the problem was that I didn't have that confidence in that anymore. I didn't find my niche. And oftentimes when I was trying to sing the popular songs that like had singers going really high or whatever, and I tried to go as high as that and started joking or like coughing or whatever, because it felt like my I don't know what you call it, like vocal cords probably, right? Vocal cords, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's such a simple word, but yeah, my vocal cords, I like couldn't carry that weight anymore. And I never learned to kind of like do nasally voice or whatever. And I also never really liked the nasally voice. It feels bad to me. Like it doesn't feel real. It feels like artificial in the sense that like when you're going up and you hit that limit that you're going into the nose basically with what you're doing on a vocal level, it doesn't feel good as a singer. I don't know. But yeah, like at some point in time, I started to feel embarrassed about my voice. I feel like reacting has helped a lot with that, because like I might actually put that in front of like the Arcane season 2 reaction, and maybe also in front of like the Techhnolyze. So you might have a double and be like, oh, am I watching the same video? No, you're not. Probably I've just like cut it in front of both because I think it's more relevant to the Arcane stuff. But either way, like it's a random tangent, and I like to also include it into this Techhnolyze reaction. So welcome everybody. We're gonna react to Techhnolyze episode 14. Probably the last one before Christmas for you patrons. Probably a good deal after Christmas. Like probably like more February for all of you YouTube people. Because I worked on actually getting ahead on Techhnolyze and getting ahead on Monster in order to take a real like Christmas vacation and actually just chill out and meet family and do all kinds of stuff and do like stuff that I need to do. But yeah, I apologize that it's a single reaction as well. I do like to do the double reactions, but sometimes there's just not enough time for it. And in these cases, I'm going to do this, and that's just how it's going to be. But yeah, let's jump into the Techhnolyze stuff. What did happen last time? What happened last time was actually that we were at a breaking point, I would almost say, right? We do have that the inner conflict of Ran is getting to the forefront, right? Her ability to see the future and see how things influence one another, especially see Ich's future, which she doesn't like, but she feels like she has no control over, right? That all of his actions lead to a certain point where she can't interfere, or whatever she does will naturally lead to the conclusion that she has foreseen, right? She's like, I can see the future, but I don't want to see it anymore, right? I don't want to know what happens because I do know the people before they die, right? All of these things. And we do have more or less the introduction, not the introduction, but at the very least the reveal of the third major faction of this entire conflict, which is Gabe, which is like the people, weird, cultish, like ancient Ra's al Ghul, Batman kind of seeming society where the seers come from, right? The people who can, the sages, the people who can see into the future and whatnot. And Ran is that very candidate, and all of their cult is built around, like, first of all, protecting her, of course, but also of just like making sure that future happens. So the question is, are we living in a deterministic universe here where things just happen the way they happen, and when you see them, you can't avoid them happening? Or is this more or less a construct of the society that we live in, which is Gabe in this case, like the construct perpetuated by this society, the secret society of Gabe, like these sages and whatnot that foretell the future, and then Gabe does everything they can, right, in order to make sure that future actually happens. which is like, for example, welcoming an outsider like Yoshi and being like, hey, how you doing? Here you go, you got directions, now do what you need to do, right? An outsider comes in, he crumbles the entire world, like the entire order of the society there. The society crumbles and it gets rebuilt from the ashes, basically, like a cycle that Gabe itself wants to keep perpetuating, while maybe other forces within the city or like people like Ichse would like for that to not be the case, would like for the endless cycle of same actually to be a little bit different, right? To be disrupted, for us to be the authors of our own fate, which is obviously, I guess, one of the major philosophical conflicts in a lot of narratives and stories across time, across the ages, which is self-determination versus fate, right? Do we live in a world where everything is already determined? And I guess further than that, right? Like once we decided, yeah, everything is determined, or yeah, everything is free will and is like can be freely influenced, the question that we have to ask is, does it even matter? Because even if everything is self-determined, as long as we go through life and we do perceive ourselves as the authors of our own fate, right? Because I make decisions the way I make decisions because I am the way I am, personality-wise, experience-wise. All of these things happened to me, and I worked in like with my genes and everything else. I worked in interaction with what happened to me and happened with me in the environment. And as such, I am a product both of my environment and my genetics. And both these things interact, right? Like I am a construct basically in time, and I do interact with the environment, and I do interact with my own genetics, right? With my own bodily functions and everything else. And that reflects back on me and gives me more input, which refines, basically like a diamond almost, it refines me in my personality, in the way I am, in my character, in all of that, right? And as such, I'm going through life and I'm making decisions, and maybe those decisions would have always happened to be these decisions. But the question is that determinism in the sense that even if I don't want to, these decisions will always be made in that way? Or is it more of a, I have a moral conflict and I would like there to be different solutions, or I would like to not have to make that decision in that specific point in time, but my character, my free will, the person I am actually determines what decision I make 100% of the time, unless the decision is literally 50-50 and I flip a coin. But even me flipping a coin would be my conscious decision to flip a coin, right? So the question is, does it even matter if we have free will or if everything is predetermined, or is it just the same, basically, just a matter of perspective in a way? Things I asked myself a lot in media, but especially, for example, in Attack on Titan, there was a big strand of like philosophical thinking coming from basically that, and probably from a lot of like manga readers and anime viewers and everything else as well, that those ideas got like picked up again, and people were like, this is an interesting line of thought. I mean, obviously it's circular because we can't like come to a real solution we can't determine anything from that. There's been like a lot of research when it comes like to psychological stuff where we ask ourselves, do we actually have free will? And a lot of the research is kind of saying maybe not. Like, not in the sense that we understand it, right? In the sense that oftentimes we humans, we perform actions before we make a conscious decision to do something. And oftentimes us performing these actions based on, I guess, heuristics and instincts and everything else that is part of ourselves as a person, right? But not of our conscious self, right? We are making these subconscious decisions, and we are like the impulse for the action within our brain, like the electrical signals happen before we actually actively perceive that we are doing it and making the active conscious decision to do them. And then we do them and we retroactively explain that we have made that decision as a conscious effort, which is very interesting because you have a lot of interesting, very clever, like genius experiments of researchers who have put themselves like to the table and were like, okay, how can we figure out if something like an impulse for action, like for example, if it comes to like movement, right, motoric action or whatever, if that happens before we actually make a conscious decision to do these things, right? How can we determine that and splice that apart and make sure, like, right, especially there's also a lot of interesting research like regarding split brain patients who have like severe epilepsy and who had like the corpus callosum, the thing like the bridge in the middle that is connecting a lot of nerves from the left side of the brain to the right side of the brain, have that separated. And these patients actually exhibit very interesting patterns where like one half of the brain like is trying to explain what the other half is doing despite not really knowing it, because there's literally no connection that can go on between the two of them. But the person often retroactively explains these things with like logical conscious thought, right? Conscious ideas, logical ideas, but logical ideas that are very much tied to the function of the side of the brain, right? We do know brains are asymmetrical, right? Different functions are on different sides of the brain, at least in terms of like how much they are expressed, right? There's like in many regions of the brain, many functions of the brain, there's the capacity for both sides of the brain to actually develop those. But since our development works the way it does, oftentimes it's like that certain parts of the brain are responsible for, or are like more responsible for specific things than other parts of the brain. Now, obviously there's still like extreme specialization where one part of the brain is only responsible for this thing and the other part couldn't do that. That is present as well, at least we think so, but most of the time it's like just on the one side, that part, that function, that specific thing we can do as human beings is being developed very much, and the region of the brain responsible for it is very big, right? And on the other side it's like very small, and sometimes you do have like that one region of the brain has damage due to whatever external trauma or internal like bleeding or whatever happens, right? Strokes. And then another part of the brain that could be responsible for a similar function is trying to compensate for that and gets bigger as a result of that, right? Develops more to cover for it. You can have that. But yeah, it's highly fascinating because like a lot of researchers had put a lot of thought and effort into like just trying to find out the exact, like trying to kind of even get close to determining if what we're doing are mostly conscious decisions or if they are subconscious and we just retroactively explain them later on, which like current state of research, that is the likely scenario, which is like I'm making a decision because like of my algorithm, right? The way I am, the way I work, like me as a construct, as a person, as a unit. And then like my conscious self, which is kind of a really interesting phenomenon, and we still don't know in which capacity animals or other life forms actually have that conscious self, right? How developed it is and whatnot. But our conscious self afterwards is like, oh yeah, I did that because of that, right? Or I made that conscious decision. This is why I did that. Sometimes at the very least might not be true. But yeah, let's get into Gabe, let's get into Lucas and how everything is breaking at the seams right now and how everything is like in a great state of change, and let's see what's happening the next couple of episodes. I mean, Yoshi's out of the picture. He's kind of dead unless we live in some kind of metaphysical realm in which like he will appear again, because like when he died here in Lucas, he reappeared on the outside. We don't know, right? We don't know where Lucas is located in the world and what universe we are even in, right? We only know like the little pond we are in, right? We only know the little soup bowl we're in. We can't peek over the edge of it, right? Might as well be a whole world outside there that is completely different from what we assume, and from completely different from what Lucas is and whatnot, and we wouldn't know, right? So there's this weird feeling of like, I mean, I just drew the parallel to Attack on Titan. I'm gonna draw it again, like this weird idea of like, I don't know, we step outside the walls and we realize we're not the last surviving humans in case of like Attack on Titan, little Attack on Titan spoilers, right? And the whole world opens up and we're like, holy shit, I didn't know. And it feels like this could be a possibility within Techhnolyze where maybe not necessarily the exact same way, right? We step outside and it's like, oh, holy shit, I didn't know. But it's more like, I had no idea how different the outside of what we have seen so far, right? Outside of a little bubble is actually in comparison to what we see within Lucas and how Lucas works. But yeah, let's get into Techhnolyze episode 14 for today. You know the deal for Techhnolyze, we do have a lot of like a decent amount of copyright, so I'm gonna cut out the intro and we're gonna start like the countdown or like the timer on the intro. I might stop 1 or 2 times within the episode, in which case I will stop the timer and then start it up again. I'm kind of working on making this a little bit more intuitive, but it's really hard to do so, right? Without like resetting the timer every time. So if you have any interesting ideas on how to integrate the pauses in a way to make it easier for those people who are syncing up, do let me know. I would really appreciate that. If not, obviously, there's always the full-length reaction that you can get from Patreon. So go check that out if you're interested in that. But yeah, let's get this party started. All right. I'm going to start the countdown in just a second. First frame of the show. First frame of the show after the OP. Ooh, we're back on the train tracks. You will hurt many people. You will all alone. What does that mean? Right? All alone. What a prophecy. That is fucking true. The question is it within your fate? If you've, right, like, I'm not gonna stop this time, but like, is it part of your fate that you've been told the future, right? If it's part of the design. Ooh, Dog is frustrated. But she's reporting something to somebody. But she's not getting what she wanted in return. Yep. Goodbye, my dude. Ooh, what is that, like water surface? Ooh, okay. Is that like the pool we saw earlier, or is it a different one? Looks different. Ooh, who are you? Just a random assassin? That was a distinct design. Classic murdered in the pool, okay. Actually, just... That's like straight up like mafia style, holy shit. Alright, dog. What are you doing? Catch another stray? You're interested in the parts, I guess. Need some more material for the tech. I do wonder if there's some raffia in there or if it's just like metal parts. Oh, she's just curious. She doesn't need the chunk. She's interested in who wants it. Money always opens the doors, right? The class. They want metal. Why? Why do they want that scrap metal? What's the purpose of that? Does it have something to do with like the brother and sister that we saw? I mean, we do know the dog is not from Lucas originally. So was she part of the class, or was she part of like where Yoshi came from? Or was she part of like maybe even people like Gabe? But I don't think so, right? I don't think that's unlikely. I do love like the washed out colors. It feels very like on point in terms of the atmosphere. Like that is a conscious choice on like the directing. What is this shot? Bro, this looked like a video game. Like an old school video game. 3D sequence. Focus on the boobs, of course. Right, him, like, his gaze. Yeah, of course. It's very interesting. Normally she's much more in control normally. Yeah, I think Gabe is really organizing some shit. Ooh, okay. Right. Huh. And she knew that he was not working at max capacity. But I guess she's probably still shocked from that incident just now. Fucking rich people etiquette, what the fuck? Does he need raffia for that? Right? Is there some... It's almost like the parts communicate with him, right? And he brushes that away, okay. Interesting.
てて騒ぐことじゃないな。力のない奴は舞台から消える。当たり前のことだ。今さら始まったことでもない。
他人事だな。次は俺か、あんたか。
何を焦っている。
Maybe he arranged it.
俺がお前の立場ならやはり余計なことを考えるか。慌てなくてもチャンスは巡ってくる。お前はやがて元のポジションに戻る。今は連中が勝手に潰れるのを拝ませてもらおう。
I don't know if this is what he's actually concerned about. His position.
今、あなたはこの町で最も進化した人間。あなたを見ればあの連中も私が何を目指していたか。
What do you mean? Who sees it?
どう使えばいいのか。
Oh, they should utilize their own technology. Holy shit, all of the riddles.
あなた。
Still not sure if he's enjoying that or not, right? The first time he was very rejective, but at this point in time, maybe he isn't. Ooh, okay, more history of her. And she's like kind of almost dressed like the class, right? Yeah. Not completely, but... I mean, to be fair, this could just be like her... like functional clothing against the sun. Hmm. Oh, where are we going? What's happening? Maybe I'm just impatient on that. But we talk about his reactions later, right? Find that interesting. Home. Mm-hmm. Because she has him, but...
俺たち？あなたと大西のこと？私がいなくともテクノライズの修理だけならまだ町でもできるわ。あなたが他人の心配するなんて私にもなびかないくせに。そんなに大西は魅力的？
Interesting. She feels a tiny bit spurned, huh?
ムカつく。でもあなたは心配しなくていいの。あなたは私と一緒に行くんだから。そうね。ご褒美にあなたには教養を与えてあげる。人間の本来の魅力は教養よ。そしてそれに導かれる理想。あなたを大西なんかに負けない男にしてあげる。テクノライズは暴力なんかのためにあるんじゃないって教えてあげる。
俺を返せ。
What does he want? That's the question, right?
あなたは何も分かっていない。全部私次第なのよ。あなただって。この町の人間がどうやって進化していくかだって。
Is that arrogance or is it truth?
切り離して向こうにつなげろ。おい。おい。はい。残りは。一度には無理だと話したはずだ。急げば急ぐだけ弾むそうだ。そうだ？本当に戦争でも始める気か？余計なことは聞くな。
Don't ask questions. Don't ask questions. Need to know basis, right? Those are the technolized parts, right? But she considers them junk. The question is, are they junk? Because for her, like, she has that ideal of what it's supposed to be, right? The tunnel. Much like the train tracks almost, right? Predetermined, you can't switch, right? You can't change.
開けなさい。
A giant gate or
見えてる
something.
んでしょ。開けなさい。分かってるのよ。あなたたちがテクノライズのリソースを集めてることくらい。私の送ったレポートを読んだんでしょ。
Ooh.
必要なんでしょ。ここにあるわ。見て、ちゃんと結果を持ってきたわ。彼はこの町で一番進化した人間よ。いい加減私を認めたらどうなの？私の技術を使えば、テクノライズと人間はより融合する。より完全な人間が何世代後にはできる。私がいれば、いつか外の奴らだって。
No interest.
お気に召しませんか。
早く開けなさい。何をしてるの？
Holy shit. Is he gonna save her? All her data. Why do they want to destroy her? Holy fuck, okay. I want to stop, but I can't. The imagery, I don't want to interrupt that. It's really cool. Hypnotizing almost. A tunnel. Right, this is a good place to stop it, actually. Have a little bit of silence, which we need, but... See, this is the problem with, like, Techhnolyze. I don't know who they belong to. Are they, like, part of the class? I think they're the class, because she's like, okay, who wants this Techhnolyze chunk? And then it's like, the class, and she's like, the class? And then later on, she's like, I know you're collecting stuff to Techhnolyze. You need me, right? It's like trying to, I guess... Maybe she got banished or abandoned them and now she wants back in. Or she was like, all right, I'll take my leave. I'll show you that my way is a way to actually go forward. And once she had that information, which is right now, she was like, here you go. This is what you want. But they don't, apparently. Right? They would have eliminated her for whatever reason that is. And it is because of the sister who seems displeased, according to the comments of the brother. The brother wasn't it that like opposed to that. I mean, maybe. See, like the weird like Techhnolyze. I think it's Techhnolyze, right? Like mannequin-esque bodies that don't have any hosts sitting there, and I'm like, all right, that is like the next level of fucked up. I mean, I guess. Very interesting. And what, get killed? Interesting, we have ruins of some kind of like city, or at least buildings out here. Maybe the last city that got eradicated by happenings.
なんでよ。私が必要じゃないの。
いえ、あの中が。
そうよ。
どんなとこだ。
どんなとこって、ただの街よ。
It's just a city.
あなたたちには到底理解できない人間が住んでる。
Try to explain it.
俺は何も知らないから一人になるのか。
え？
何も知らないからみんな壊すのか。
何言ってるの？
いつかあんたの知ってることを教えてくれ。
He wants to change his fate. He doesn't want to be alone. Okay, what did he do that for? Oh, maybe he's telling him that she died. Right? He's like, she's dead. Or maybe not, I don't know. I mean, he seems to be fucking them all up right now. I mean, you go. Obviously, they're after the dog, but I don't know if they're the same people as Gabe or if they're like the class. A lot of shit happening here. Hmm. Yeah, no. That's a decoy. That was too obvious. And bro's like... That was actually pretty nice. With the double gun. What did you discover? Also very nice detail that he gave her the jacket.
全部消えてる。
All your research gone. It's still in there, Doc. It's still in there, okay? I mean, you can't reconstruct the data, of course. It's gonna take a lot of time.
まだだ。
It's all gone. Not yet. Right, he's still here.
まだ全部は消えてない。
Hmm.
嘘よ。いつか消えるくせに。
Hmm. Holy shit. I'm gonna listen to this ED. And then I'll see you again because I can't show it on you, or I can't like play it on YouTube. T-shirt too. Yeah. I think it's very interesting that Ran's tails, like pigtails, actually get transferred into the credits of like the thing. Also, it almost seems like she loses the pigtails and just has a short hair figure. Short hair haircut, basically. Almost like resting, like dead or something. But one thing I wondered when I listened to the song just now is actually maybe I've been seeing things from the wrong perspective. Like I've watched Arcane lately and I've accidentally picked up on like the relationship of two characters that actually had a different relationship, right? Misinterpreted that, and then just was too hesitant on the other relationship that was starting to build, where I was like, okay, am I wrong after all? But I think like maybe what I'm seeing is colored with like the biases that I culturally like have picked up over the course of my life, and maybe this song actually doesn't talk about Ichise being like longing to see Ran again, but the other way around, right? It feels a lot like things make more sense if the song is from the perspective of Ran, which is like more than anybody else, I lost myself in you and I want to see you again. And if it's like I don't know, like if it's an unobtainable dream, please destroy it for me or something like that. It feels a lot like from the perspective of Ran. It's like I see all of these things that are about to happen, and I saw your future specifically as well, and I kind of lost myself in your fate, basically, right? stuff like that. It feels more like it's maybe from Ron's perspective to Ichise and not the other way around. It could be both ways, right? It could be that too, but it feels a lot like it's maybe from Ron's perspective, even though we do see Ron in like the ED, and it feels more like we are actually looking at Ron and singing this to her. But maybe it's like singing from her out to the outside, to, in this case, like our main character Ichise. But yeah, a lot of mysteries again, but we're used to that from Techhnolyze at this point in time, right? We get posed certain questions and certain like mysteries, certain like little breadcrumbs, but at this point in time we have enough of like a reference frame to at least kind of give them very, very educated guesses. Not a lot happening to Onishi here, although he is under pressure still because his allies get partially taken out. It's not his direct allies, right? The people who are on one level with him, but it's people that are part of his organization or part of like the sub-organizations, and this is difficult. Who is taking them out and why, and what's the reason? And it's very interesting that Ichise is actually the one who is thinking very sharply here. It's like, it's the enemy up there, right? They almost killed us, which is Gabe. Which is insane if you think about it, right? At least that's how I understood it. It's very interesting how the dog is in this conflict to prove herself almost, right? She wants to be reintegrated into the place she came from. I can't do anything like this, right? She studied on so many people, right? Like the forms and like the different body components of people and whatnot. Oh no, this is actually wrong. This is massage, like the massage parlor. Okay, I confused that. This is the massage parlor. But this is like the dog which is communicating with, like, I guess the class where she came from. Great imagery with the pool, how everything is kind of swimming. It feels very like, I don't know, it's like a unique atmosphere, and him coming out of it and then just like from the water surface and looking down the barrel of a gun and boom. The classic like shot in your own pool kind of thing of like a senator or some kind of politician or some kind of leader. And we have the little breadcrumbs of who is doing all this, who's collecting this technologized junk to actually use in whatever they want to use it in, and it's like the class. And she's surprised by that. She's like, what do they want with that? I think it's very interesting also how this is like a very interesting, first of all, like I said, the atmosphere, but that's been like Techhnolyze in general. It's very cool that we create this atmosphere of almost sun-bleached, like dust-riddled, right? Like, you feel like if you would be moving through this environment, it would be very bright, way too bright for your eyes. It would be very dusty, so like every time you breathe in, you would be breathing in sand and dust and whatnot. It feels that way, right? And smog and like fog and whatnot. Like the entire air is polluted. That's how it feels. This is a very interesting shot as we're going past the wall and onto like this, like, because down here, like the way we bend the lens, basically, it feels like this is a 3D space that we just created. Like we're in a video game and we're walking towards like the door, and then like the door opens so like strangely, like it is in like an old-timey video game. Like you could expect something like this to happen when you're like, I don't know, Fallout 2, where you have like a specifically animated sequence to a specific building you're going in, and then it's like, because it was like a top-down one, but everything that's shown in 3D to get like to improve the immersion of everything, right? And show the important places. This could be one of those shots where you're like opening up the door to a very important location. And it's very interesting how they shot this one. Wonder if this was just an experimental one-off or if that has any specific significance. Very interesting how he's looking, like this guy, this fucking piece of shit, is looking up, and he's like very much not interested in who's coming in here and just talking. And then like the immediate focus, like she's stepping into frame, but he doesn't follow her eyes, right? To kind of just meet her level on. What he's doing is basically he's immediately focusing on the chest, and he's like, oh, nice. Like this basically, there's good ways to use the male gaze, there's bad ways to use the male gaze. This is a good way to use it because we are establishing what the focus and priority of this person right here is in this moment. And as she's like blocking it with the money, basically he's looking up. And interesting that we focus on the eyes. I do wonder if her eye color, like the blonde and blue eyes, if that is rare in Lucas, and that is maybe one of the reasons we focus on that. But very interesting how we zoom in on her, like, because she's shocked at like the sudden force in which he grips her hand, which, like, the way her reaction goes, he seems to be gripping it so tight that it hurts. And he's pulling her in, kind of. And this is like a very interesting position. First of all, this is a position where you would, like, an embarrassing position to shoot the angle from, which means maybe that we want to express with that camera angle that she is kind of in a situation of domestic, well, not really domestic, but abuse, right? Physical abuse that could easily evolve into a sexual abuse thing, because we established that in the beginning, where we have like the shot to the boobs, right, interrupted, and then he's pulling her in, right, like dominance, basically trying to gain the upper hand in that interaction, be a fucking creep with it. And she's like so surprised by it, and maybe he's strong enough, right, that she can't immediately pull herself away from that. Although I feel like if she put her weight into it, she probably could. But yeah, I mean, she does here, right here, right? But she's toppling over. It's very interesting because this is like a position that she is not used to, and we are not used to from her, because she is normally oftentimes in a dominant position, right? In a position where she has power over the people that she interacts with, or at the very least she's on one level with them. Onishi, for example, she's on one level with Onishi, although when she's repairing or doing maintenance on his Techhnolyze stuff, then obviously she's in a dominant position because he has to rely on her in order to get his physical ability to keep or like to keep working or to work again. So yeah, fucking creep, dude. Focus on the lips again. We did that before in Techhnolyze with this like the dude opposed to Onishi, who was trying that coup, who was being all fucking sleazebag and asshole and whatnot and betraying everybody. And we focused on the lips as well, almost like as a sign, like these big swollen lips as a sign of like a person who has like a disgusting character almost. That's how I feel in the way they shoot that. I don't quite know why we feel that way based on the way that this is shot, but this is how I feel when I take that in. Onishi having difficulties and all that, and we have that clever comment of like Ichise, who Onishi's like, I really like that Onishi and Ichise understand each other so well at this point in time, and that they kind of both somewhat respect one another. It's really great. And she almost seems like she is, like, obviously she was very fond of him in the beginning, and she still sees him kind of as a pet, which I feel like is one of the main reasons why he never was interested in her. But yeah, she seems to be at least feeling very close to him and Onishi on like a character level, right? On a personality level, where she's like, this is a kind of person that is not off-putting to me, that I find very interesting due to their potential. In this case, probably the potential in combination with his Techhnolyze, with his technology and everything that she spotted in the beginning. And obviously she's seeking comfort here, I do feel like, right? With like the date-like scenario and her hugging him, which is like, for this person, I don't have to be afraid that whatever happens between the two of us, they are starting to be abusive, or they're starting to be like lash out to me. Because we had that moment earlier where she was so fucking sure that she didn't even flinch, where he was angry, where he was like just going out of himself for being toyed with and being like used like that. But they were standing in the cell and he like boxed, but he didn't box. Like, he didn't hit her, he like hit past her as a show of like, I'm frustrated, I'm angry and whatnot, but he couldn't hit her, which kind of shows where his character lies in terms of what his morals are. and or maybe also in which capacity he actually likes her as a human being, right? Because she, as much as she's manipulative, as much as she had power over him, and as much as she forced that Techhnolyze stuff onto him, I do feel like she was one of the few people who didn't treat him like completely badly, right? Who didn't hurt him immediately, who didn't like just, right? Who actually gave him something that, while he didn't want it at the time, at the very least was useful to him and wasn't something that caused him immediate pain. Although it caused a lot of like confusion and like overstimulation probably and whatnot. But she feels very comfortable with him. Like, his reaction is still very interesting because we do have that slight smile on his face, but at the same time, we do, of course, also have him being very much a non-responder. He was that in the beginning as well, with all people, right? Like, Onishi, Yoshi, none of them really kind of connected to him. Like, it was very hard to figure out what he's thinking on the insides. He's still that kind of stoic character to a degree, but he's more open with his thoughts, which I really like because we get a little bit of insight without sacrificing who he actually fundamentally is, which is still being that like kind of tight-knit, close, stoic character. She's very tender with him, and he does, I think, realize that to a degree, she at the very least she meant well with him, and at the very least she has very warm feelings for him, which he does appreciate even if he doesn't reciprocate them. And she is kind of unlocking more of the Techhnolyze. I still don't know how to treat Techhnolyze, right? Because technically, like, it's just a limb, but you do have that nerve connection, and then she's like, memories seem to be flashing into our minds based on that, so it's very interesting. I do hope that, yeah, that it becomes more and more clear. We have a little politics going on, and once again, she's like, is this necessary? Or is it just her? I think it's just her whimsy, right? It's just her liking the comfort of it. The question is, does he like it, or does he just accept it in a way, right? I mean, he certainly probably, at this point in time, he would be outspoken enough to be like, no, I don't want to, if he actually didn't want to, if he actively disliked it. But I think he's just humoring her. That's at least the way it seems to me. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's just him not communicating or showing enough that he actually enjoys it and likes it, and is like maybe even like feeling very close to her as well. But at the very least, he doesn't have any negative feelings towards it, seemingly. It's just like, be a good boy, and Liza is still that, right? It's still that, like, treating him like a lab rat or like a dog or whatever, which I don't like. We have that plot going on with like the Techhnolyze parts, little bits shown each. And I do really like how we focus on her face a lot to show what she's feeling on the inside when she's talking to him. And we do have those, like, she's not happy with the way she, like, the place she is in the world. Be that because of outside circumstances forcing her to actually go to Lucas and do all of her stuff, and then like her desperately wanting to get back, or be that because she's more of like basically the scientist of like, I'll show you that my research is gonna be fire and it's gonna be the future and whatnot, and she went to Lucas because of that, out of her free will, to actually prove something, and now she's coming back and gets rejected, right? She's like, she gets pissed off and kind of low-key jealous of Onishi that Ichise holds so much, like that Ichise is so much focused on Onishi and likes him so much, as opposed to her being like, how can that be when you won't even fall for me? She's like, maybe normally just used to being more like people being infatuated with her if she wants them to be. Or maybe she just expects that because of her potential feelings for him that she's hoping are gonna be reciprocated, and she's frustrated that they're not. I don't know in which capacity she's actually just playing with him, right? I mean, you can consider somebody beneath yourself and at the same time be interested in them on a romantic level, right? That is like, people, like, we're humans, right? There's a lot of cognitive dissonance going on in many areas where we believe one thing and at the same time the other thing, and technically both of them should be contradicting each other, but because they happen in different contexts or we see them in a different way, right? We can kind of just keep that opposition, right? Keep that contrast apart and be like, this is fine, right? I believe in both, even though both actually technically contradicts one another. The ideals led by it. As a reward, I'll give you cultural sophistication. A man's charm essentially sophistication. And the ideals led by it. The ideals led by the sophistication. It's very interesting because some people would maybe argue that sophistication is the result of ideals. Although I guess... Right? But at the same time, sophistication can kind of just be a guidepost to certain, or like a nudge in the direction of certain ideals. So I guess. Sophistication. What sophistication does she want to give them? I mean, him being part of the class of like this higher society of weird, like, because she's like, later on, she's like, you wouldn't understand their society in the least. And I'm like, okay, pray tell, try to explain it. And he says that, he's like, I don't want to be a person who keeps not understanding, because I feel like maybe this is the thing that leads me to be alone, all alone in the end. It's like a very telling thing. Like, we skip across this is like very straightforward stuff. I do really love the hypnotic patterns and like right, how this mirrors the railways that we keep seeing, where we're like we're just inevitably driving towards a certain fate on like rail tracks, which rail tracks are kind of symbolism for, as opposed to a street where a car can go wherever it wants and kind of just take a turn here and there, or maybe even go off-roading. A train track is basically you're on the track and you can't really change directions unless you have a certain intersection where you can just switch the rails. So it's very interesting. And there's like the lights, the way they like the after images go, it's like very hypnotic in the way it functions. But yeah, it's about time you acknowledged my accomplishments. This is like so weird, right? These like mannequin-esque things that are right, these two, right? Like almost like Siamese twins, basically, in form of a statue, or maybe like it's even just like a person who is inside there, which is so weird because he's like, sister, are you displeased? So is this the sister? What kind of entity or being is it? Like give me like Puppet Master vibes from Ghost in the Shell. But yeah, and this is where it shows he cares about her. Right? Even if he's like maybe not in love with her, he cares about her as an individual because he knows she's not a bad person. He knows that she's like, in her own way, in her own damaged way, she's trying to just achieve what she wants to do, and she's not doing that in a way to just be destructive or whatever. And he empathizes with her in a way, maybe also a little bit Stockholm Syndrome, right? Stockholm Syndrome was a coin that was originally termed based on a couple of incidents, I think, but one of the main incidents was in Stockholm, Sweden, where there was hostage situations, and like the hostages eventually identified themselves with their captors, kind of felt for them in a way, right? Because they were treated nicely by them, because they were like, right? And this is kind of paralleling that kind of scenario, right? Where you like, in a way, in the beginning of this, Ichise was very much a captive of Onishi, of the dog, of everybody, right? And now he is way more sympathetic towards them because they were the ones who were not actively hurting him, right? They were the ones who were like maybe even doing something for him, even if he didn't want it at the time. And this is when his like thing comes through, where he's like, please, can you is that why I'm going to destroy everything? Because I don't understand, right? It's like, is it the lack of understanding? I don't know if it's the lack of understanding. Maybe it's the understanding that will actually lead to him potentially destroying everything, right? Because who knows, right? If things are revealed and you realize maybe everything would be better off falling apart, maybe you make that decision eventually, but... Or if you lost everybody around you and you're like, okay, what do you do now, right? But he's like making that offer. He's pinging her in a way. Someday teach me things you know, right? Share your world with me. That is like something very intimate. And it's like, I want to know more about you. And this is, again, like her eyes opening is kind of like just her letting him in, basically. Even more than she already did. And him like, very cool that we have like light and shadow on his face. And he's looking very like concerned, very, but also very connected. Like it takes a lot of skill to actually bring that across in both voice acting and the art that we're showing here. The way we frame the picture of him like just being straight on and like the middle of his face being right in the middle of the screen, which is very unusual, right? Sometimes you just put people to one side or the other because it's more interesting of a frame. But obviously, there's a certain impact that a frame that is so straight, so symmetrical has on you, with the only point of asymmetry actually being the background and the shadows. But yeah, like I didn't know what he was doing, but then I realized, oh yeah, he's gonna use the glove in some kind of capacity to actually make them believe they killed her or he killed her or whatever, and she's not there anymore. But he only used it as a distraction in that case. This is very funny that we zoom in on her like half naked being surprised, so you don't know what was that about. But yeah, obviously, right? Just using that as a decoy. And him just going to town on them. I love that shot. It was like them being like, haha, we got her, right? Looking at one another. And then he's like standing behind him, both like akimbo style. That is really cool. Yeah. But yeah, all of her research, most of her research has been destroyed. And just, again, we see how he cares about her. He's like, not everything has been destroyed. And I think in this case, he means himself, right? He means like what's in her head, and he himself as like the centerpiece of her research. And she's like, eventually it will be, right? You're not wrong, but you're not right either. But she appreciates that. She appreciates that attempt of comforting her, which says a lot about the relationship of the two. Also the mantle, which I like was like the suit. Him giving her the suit also shows a lot about that he doesn't hate her, that he does have some degree of care and warmth towards her, right? Because that is a gesture that is very protective, very considerate, because you're like, okay, first of all, embarrassment, right? So you don't have to be like bare naked or whatever. And obviously societal standards, we have different standards. Men being like shirtless isn't as big a deal as women, but also, right, making an effort to reduce her vulnerability, both to like embarrassment, like we just said, but also to the elements, right? Being cold, right? Being unprotected in general on the skin as well, right? And him giving her a drink, being like, here you go. Yeah, things are in movement again, and we don't know what's gonna be happening down the line, but it keeps being interesting, doesn't it? We haven't had any run. I do wonder if we're gonna have run in the next episode, but you will all have to be seeing that in a week or two or whatever, whenever we actually get to it. Yeah, I mean, you on Patreon might have to wait a while. I churned out a lot of these and like lately, especially on the monster side as well. But yeah, I'll get them out as much as I can get them out. And I'll see you next time.